A janitor fixed a stranger's heater, not knowing she was a billionaire on the run. But when her past caught up, he faced a choice: walk away or risk everything to help. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what happens next. A cold night in Bridgeport. The wind howled through the streets of Bridgeport, Connecticut, biting through layers of clothing like a knife. Snow piled high against the brick walls of the Cedar Ridge apartments, a place time had forgotten. The building groaned under the weight of the storm, its pipes rattling like old bones. Inside the dimly lit maintenance closet, Marcus Webb tightened the straps of his tool belt, his breath visible in the frigid air. Another long shift, another night of fixing things no one else cared about. Marcus was a man of few words, his hands rough from decades of turning wrenches and unclogging drains. At 52, he had learned that most people looked right through him, just another janitor, invisible. But he didn't mind. There was a quiet dignity in keeping the world running while everyone else slept. He was about to clock out when a knock came at the door. Soft, hesitant, he opened it to find a woman standing there, arms wrapped around herself for warmth. She was younger than him, late 30s, maybe, dressed in a faded sweater and jeans that had seen better days. But there was something off about her. The way her eyes darted past him, scanning the hallway. The way her fingers trembled, not just from the cold. "My heater's broken," she said. Her voice was low, measured, but there was an undercurrent of urgency. "I tried the super, but he's not answering. I heard you were the one who fixes things." Marcus nodded. He didn't ask why she was up so late. Didn't ask why she looked like she hadn't slept in days. People in places like Cedar Ridge had their reasons for keeping to themselves. He just grabbed his toolbox. "Lead the way." Apartment 4B was sparse. A couch, a coffee table, a single lamp casting long shadows. No photos, no personal touches. The cold inside was sharp enough to make his teeth ache. The woman, she called herself Eliza, hovered near the doorway as Marcus crouched by the radiator, his fingers working methodically. "You don't talk much, do you?" she asked after a while. Marcus shrugged. Not much to say. A small, tired smile flickered across her face. "I like that." The heater was an old unit, finicky but fixable. As Marcus worked, the faint sound of news report drifted from the next apartment over. Authorities are still searching for Evelyn Sloan, former CEO of Vantage Dynamics, wanted for questioning in connection with the alleged theft of proprietary technology. Sources say she may have fled the country. Eliza moved suddenly, grabbing the remote and silencing the TV. Too quickly, too deliberately. Marcus didn't react, just kept working. But he noticed things: the way her breath hitched, the way her knuckles whitened around the remote, the way she kept glancing at the door. Then, as he tightened the bolt, the floorboard beneath him shifted. Something was underneath. Without a word, he pried it up. Passports. 5 of them. Different names, different nationalities. All with Eliza's face staring back. For a long moment, the only sound was the wind outside. Eliza's voice was barely a whisper. "It's not what it looks like." Marcus looked up at her. He wasn't a fool. He'd seen enough of the world to know when someone was running. Before he could speak, a loud crash echoed from downstairs. The sound of the door being kicked in. Eliza went dead still. Her eyes locked onto his, wide with something raw and desperate. "They're here." And in that moment, Marcus Webb, a man who had spent his life staying out of other people's problems, faced a choice: walk away, or step into a storm far worse than the one outside. Outside, heavy footsteps pounded up the stairs. Marcus made his decision. "Follow me." The wrong kind of help. Marcus moved fast, grabbing Eliza's arm and pulling her toward the back of the apartment. His mind raced, years of muscle memory from a past life he'd tried to forget kicking in. The footsteps in the hallway grew louder. "You have 5 seconds to tell me who's coming," he hissed, shoving a chair under the doorknob. Eliza's voice was tight. "Private security. My ex-partner hired them. They're not here to arrest me. They're here to disappear me." Marcus didn't have time to process that. The door shuddered as someone slammed into it. He yanked open the closet door, revealing a rusted maintenance hatch in the wall. Through here. Now. Eliza hesitated only a second before climbing into the narrow service tunnel. Marcus followed, pulling the hatch shut just as the apartment door splintered open behind them. The tunnel was pitch black, the air thick with dust and the stale scent of old wiring. Eliza's breath came in short, panic bursts as they crawled forward. Marcus kept one hand on the wall, counting his steps. 20 paces. Then a left. Where does this lead? Eliza whispered. Boiler room. Then the alley. A crash echoed behind them. Someone had found the hatch. A beam of flashlight cut through the darkness. Marcus picked up the pace. The tunnel opened into a cramped utility space, pipes groaning overhead. He shoved open a rusted metal door, and freezing air blasted them as they spilled into the alley behind the building. Snow swirled in the dim glow of a streetlight. No time to stop. We need to move, Marcus said, grabbing her wrist. Eliza pulled back. Wait, we? Why are you helping me? Marcus met her eyes. Because I know what it's like to have nowhere to run. A shout came from inside the building. They were out of time. 20 minutes later, they crouched behind a dumpster 2 blocks away. Marcus's fingers trembled, not from the cold, but from the adrenaline. He hadn't lived like this in years. Eliza hugged her knees to her chest. I didn't steal anything, she said quietly. The tech was mine. Daniel just made sure the board wouldn't believe me. Marcus didn't answer. He was listening. For sirens, for footsteps, for any sign they'd been followed. You don't believe me, she said. Doesn't matter what I believe, he muttered. What matters is who they believe. He nodded toward the street, where a news van rolled past, a ticker on its screen flashing Vantago, wanted in corporate theft. Eliza's jaw tightened. Marcus pulled out his phone, hesitated, then dialed a number he hadn't used in a decade. Who are you calling? Eliza asked. Someone who can help. The line picked up. A rough voice answered. Webb, you better be dead or dying. Marcus exhaled. Yeah, Pete. Might be both soon. A pause. Then, where are you? An hour later, an unmarked van pulled up beside them in an empty parking lot. The door slid open, revealing a grizzled man with a scar down one cheek. Pete Rocks Dalton. Former Marine, current problem solver. Pete's gaze flicked to Eliza. This the package? Marcus nodded. She's clean. Eliza stiffened. I'm not a package. Pete smirked. You are now, sweetheart. He tossed a duffel bag at Marcus. Cash, burner phones, IDs, safe house upstate. Don't stop moving. Marcus caught the bag. How much do I owe you? Pete's smile faded. You really don't know what you're into, do you? He nodded at the news playing on the van's radio. Authorities report ties to the Hartman Group, a private military firm with. He cut it off. Your girl's got powerful enemies. This ain't a favor, Webb. It's a lifeline. The van door slammed shut. Tires screeched as it disappeared into the night. Eliza hugged herself. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to drag you into this. Marcus hefted the duffel bag. Too late for that. He nodded toward the bus stop across the street. We got 6 hours until sunrise. Let's use them. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed. They started walking. Ghosts against smoke. The Greyhound bus rattled through the pre-dawn darkness, its windows fogged with the breath of sleeping passengers. Marcus kept his eyes on the road behind them, watching for headlights that lingered too long. Eliza sat stiffly beside him, her fingers tracing the edge of the burner phone Pete had given them. You trust this guy? She whispered. Marcus didn't answer right away. Trust was a currency he'd run out of years ago. Pete's an asshole, he said finally, but he's the kind of asshole who pulls you out of a firefight before he calls you an idiot for walking into one. Eliza almost smiled. Almost. A sign flashed by outside. Asterisk, Albany, 32 miles. Asterisk, the safe house was a crumbling cabin nestled in the Catskills, its porch sagging under decades of neglect. Pete had left the key under a rotted floorboard, same as he had during that winter in Kandahar, when Marcus's squad needed extraction. Some habits never died. Inside smelled of mildew and gun oil. Eliza flicked on a lantern, revealing a Spartan space, a wood stove, a moth-eaten couch, and a map of the eastern seaboard pinned to the wall with knife marks where someone had tracked movement. Marcus dropped the duffel bag on the table. We rest here tonight. At first light, A floorboard creaked upstairs. Both of them froze. The cabin was supposed to be empty. Marcus's hand went to the knife in his belt. Eliza's breath hitched as a shadow shifted in the upstairs hallway. Then, Christ, Webb, you look like hell. A woman descended the stairs, her auburn hair tied back in a no-nonsense braid, jeans, combat boots, and a Glock holstered at her hip. Marcus hadn't seen her in 8 years, but he'd recognize that voice anywhere. Riley, the one and only. She tossed him a protein bar, his favorite, the kind they'd lived on during deployments. Pete called me, said you'd stumbled into a Category 5 shitstorm. Her sharp green eyes flicked to Eliza. This a billionaire? Eliza crossed her arms. Ex-billionaire. Riley smirked. Even better. She jerked her thumb toward the kitchen. Coffee's on. You've got about 6 hours before Hartman's boys triangulate this place. Marcus exhaled through his nose. Of course Pete had looped in Riley Cole. The woman could track a ghost through a sandstorm, but her timing was always a nightmare. Hartman groups involved? He asked, stomach sinking. Riley poured 3 mugs of black coffee. Oh, you didn't know? She slid one to Eliza. Your ex-partner didn't just frame you, sweetheart. He sold your tech to the highest bidder, and those boys play for keeps. A satellite image unfolded in Riley's hands. A compound in upstate New York, surrounded by armed patrols. This is where they're reverse engineering your work. And guess who's funding it? The photo caught the light. A logo on a parked SUV. Vantage Dynamics. Eliza's mug hit the floor. Daniel. Marcus watched the tree line, while Riley prepped gear in the basement. The woods were too quiet. No owls. No rustling. Just the kind of silence that meant predators were near. Eliza peered beside him, holding out a steaming replacement coffee. You don't have to stay, she said quietly. I can. You be dead by sunrise, Marcus said. He took the mug. Hartman doesn't leave loose ends. Wind stirred the pines. Somewhere out there, men with rifles and orders were closing in. Eliza studied his profile. Why did you leave the Corps? The question caught him off guard. Didn't like the retirement plan. She waited. Marcus sighed. Fallujah. My team was pinned down in an alley. Command said hold position. I said screw that. A muscle jumped in his jaw. Saved 3 guys. Got discharged for insubordination. Eliza nodded slowly. So you really do make a habit of helping strays. Before he could answer, Riley whistled from the basement stairs. Love fest over. We've got movement. Marcus peered through the binoculars. There, between the trees, a glint of scope glass. Time to go, Riley said, tossing Eliza a bulletproof vest. Hope you run fast, princess. The first shot shattered the kitchen window. Marcus grabbed Eliza's hand. Back door. Now. As they burst into the cold night, the cabin exploded behind them in a fireball that lit up the mountains like a second sunrise. Blood and blueprints. The shock wave knocked him forward, sending Marcus skidding across frozen dirt. He rolled onto his back in time to see the cabin's roof collapse inward, flames clawing at the sky. Riley was already up, yanking Eliza to her feet. Move or die, she barked. Gunfire chewed through the trees around them. Marcus counted at least 3 shooters. Professional, advancing in a flanking pattern. Hartman's men weren't here to capture. They were here to erase. He grabbed the pistol Riley had tossed him and returned fire, buying them seconds. Ravine! Go! They crashed through underbrush, branches whipping at their faces. Eliza stumbled, but Marcus caught her arm, dragging her forward. Behind them, shouts echoed. East! They're heading east. Followed by the sickening whine of a drone overhead. Riley swore, pulling them behind a boulder. They've got air recon. We're sitting ducks. Eliza's breath came in ragged gasps. There's a town, 5 miles north. I saw it on the map. 5 miles might as well be 50 with that thing tracking us. Riley snapped. Marcus watched the drone's lazy circles. Then he reached into the duffel bag and pulled out the one thing Pete had included that he hadn't expected. A handheld signal jammer. Military grade. Distract them, he said, handing Riley a grenade. Her grin was feral. Now you're speaking my language. The explosion rocked the woods as Riley's grenade hit a pine tree, sending up a plume of smoke. Marcus jammed the signal. The drone wobbled, then dropped like a stone. Run. The town was a ghost of itself, a boarded-up gas station, a diner with one flickering neon sign. They collapsed into a booth by the window, the adrenaline wearing off in shaky waves. Outside, the first hints of dawn bled through the trees. Riley slapped cash on the table as a waitress brought coffee. We've got maybe an hour before Hartman's team checks here. Eliza cupped her hands around the steaming mug. We need proof. Something that ties Daniel to Hartman. You're the tech genius, Riley said. Can't you hack into your own systems? Not without. Eliza froze. Her eyes locked on the diner's ancient wall-mounted TV, where a morning news ticker scrolled. Vantage Dynamics announces merger with Harman Security Solutions. CEO Daniel Kent to speak at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Marcus watched the blood drain from Eliza's face. That's it, isn't it? The proof. She nodded numbly. The merger was my project. Daniel's using my algorithm to finalize it, the same one he framed me for stealing. Riley whistled. So the bastard's not just covering his tracks. He's cashing in. A truck rumbled past the diner. Too slow. Marcus tensed, hand drifting to his weapon. But it was just a farmer. For now. We need to get to that announcement, Eliza said. Which is where? Riley asked. Manhattan. Vantage Tower. Marcus exhaled. Of course it was. A skyscraper in the most surveilled city on Earth, guarded by the very men hunting them. Riley spun her coffee cup. Even if we get in, how do we prove you're innocent? Eliza's fingers traced a pattern on the table. A habit, Marcus realized, she did when thinking in code. The algorithm has a backdoor. My signature. If I can access the system live during the announcement, you can blow his whole scheme sky high, Marcus finished. Silence settled over the table. It was suicide. It was also the only play they had. Riley stood abruptly. I know a guy at JFK. Can get us a chopper, but we'd have to move now. Marcus met Eliza's gaze. Last chance to walk away. She didn't hesitate. I'm done running. The helicopter ride was a blur of wind and rotor noise. Manhattan rose from the horizon like a jagged crown, Vantage Tower gleaming at its center. Riley tossed some earpieces. Comms check. Hartman's got the building locked down, but there's one weak spot, construction access on the 58th floor. Marcus adjusted his vest. What's the play? I created a diversion at security. You two get Eliza to the server room. She does her magic. We all get rich. Riley paused. Or at least not dead. Eliza gripped the thumb drive like it was a holy relic. Once I plug this in, it'll take 90 seconds to upload the proof to every news outlet in the city. The chopper banked hard. Below, police lights swarmed the streets. They're on to us, the pilot yelled. Riley slapped Marcus's shoulder. Welcome back to the war, Marine. As the skyscraper loomed, Marcus wondered, not for the first time, how a janitor from Bridgeport ended up here. Then the doors opened, and there was no more time to think, only to jump. Showdown at Vantage Tower. The helicopter hovered just long enough for them to jump onto the 58th floor construction scaffolding. Marcus hit the metal grating first, rolling to absorb the impact. Eliza landed beside him, her breath coming in sharp gasps. Riley was already moving, slicing through a safety net with her combat knife. 60 seconds until they spot us, she hissed, yanking open a service hatch. They slipped inside just as searchlights swept the building's exterior. The unfinished floor was a maze of steel beams and dangling wires. Somewhere below, the murmur of a crowd filtered up. Daniel's merger announcement was about to begin. Eliza pulled out the thumb drive, her hand steady now. Server rooms 2 floors down. We need. Boots pounded on the stairs. Hartman's men. Marcus shoved her behind a concrete pillar. Riley. On it. Riley tossed him a smoke grenade before melting into the shadows. The gunfire started 3 seconds later. Marcus grabbed Eliza's wrist. Go. Now. They sprinted for the emergency stairs, the sounds of Riley's firefight echoing behind them. The stairwell was pitch black, their footsteps swallowed by the hum of the building's HVAC system. 53 floors. 52. Then, a steel door slammed open below. Flashlights. Voices. Check every floor. She's here. Marcus pulled Eliza into an elevator shaft, the cables vibrating as a car passed somewhere above. New plan, he whispered. We climbed down. Eliza stared at the narrow maintenance ladder, her face pale. I can't. You invented a quantum algorithm at 23, Marcus growled. This is just another problem to solve. She swallowed hard, then grabbed the rungs. The server room was colder than the winter outside. Blue lights blinked in the darkness as Eliza jammed the thumb drive into the main terminal. Lines of code flooded the screen. 90 seconds, she murmured. Marcus barred the door with a fire extinguisher. It wouldn't hold long. On the monitors, Daniel Kent stepped onto a stage downstairs, his smile slick under press cameras. Today marks a new era for Vantage Dynamics. Eliza's fingers flew across the keyboard. Come on. A crash at the door. The extinguisher dented inward. 30 seconds. Marcus raised his pistol. Whatever happens, keep typing. The door burst open. Hartman's lead mercenary filled the doorway, rifle raised, then jerked sideways as a bullet took him in the shoulder. Riley stood in the hall, blood streaking her temple, gun smoking. Miss me? The countdown hit 0. Every screen in the building, every phone, every TV tuned to the announcement flashed with a cascade of documents, emails, contracts, proof that Daniel had stolen Eliza's work and sold it to Hartman. The live broadcast caught his stunned face as a crowd erupted. 3 weeks later, the headlines lasted for days. Disgraced CEO arrested. Hartman Group under investigation. Evelyn Sloan cleared. Eliza stood on the rooftop of a new apartment building. The city sprawled at her feet. Marcus leaned on the railing beside her, his hands no longer calloused from a janitor's work. Board offered me my old job back, she said. You taking it? She shook her head. Too many ghosts. A pause. But I could use someone who knows how to handle chaos. Pays better than fixing heaters. Marcus smirked. That a job offer? Eliza handed him a key card. Security consultant. First assignment starts Monday. The wind picked up, carrying the sound of the city. Honking cars, distant laughter, the hum of life moving forward. Somewhere below, Riley's voice crackled over Marcus's earpiece. You two done flirting? I found a bar. Drinks are on the ex-billionaire. Eliza rolled her eyes. Marcus laughed. And for the first time in a long time, the future didn't feel like something to run from. If this story reminded you that heroes come from the unlikeliest places, hit that like button and subscribe for more tales of ordinary people facing extraordinary odds. Who should we feature next? Let us know in the comments.